everybody, Ellie here for WhoCulture, and we made it! We made it to the end of Season 2. Just because Season 2 is over doesn't mean the merch is disappearing. In fact, it's at the bottom of every single video. Just look down below the video and there's a link to our shop, and you could get yourself one of these bad boys. So, get on it! Get on it, people! That's so cool, right? Anyway, I digress. Shall we get into the breakdown and Easter eggs for the reality war? Number 41. So after last week's cliffhanger, the Doctor is falling to his certain doom, only to be rescued by Anita. Now, if for some reason you didn't catch the 2024 Christmas special Joy to the World, Anita was the manager of an ordinary Earth hotel in London before she became good friends with the Doctor, and then he got her a job at the Time Hotel, which contains many doors to different points in time. Now, the bulk of Joy to the World takes place in 4202, and in the reality war, Anita says it's still 4202. So she'd kind of been in her new role for that long. Quite honestly, I wouldn't mind if Anita popped up every now and then and just kind of became this recurring character like Captain Jack or River's Song, because it was really great to see her back. Number 40. So the day resets back to the start of May the 23rd, and Ruby and Belinda wake up at their homes to repeat the cycle. And on Ruby's bedroom walls, you can see lots of posters, a couple of which are for a band called HL3. Now, HL3 is a band within the Whoniverse that has also been seen in the show before. Specifically, earlier this season, when the Robot Revolution also featured a HL3 poster on the wall in Belinda's shared home. Also, on Ruby's wall is a poster that says Midnight, which we are also going to count as a reference to Season 2 because, come on. Number 39 to number 37. So Anita tells the Doctor that on her days off, she goes looking for him, and we get something that's become quite common in Doctor Who in recent weeks. Clip cameos. So the first of these is from the Series 6 finale, The Wedding of River's Song, a highly underrated episode, I might add. And it's from the scene where the 11th Doctor plays a deadly game of chess with Mark Gatiss' character Gantok. Now, The Wedding of River's Song was written by Stephen Moffat, so I'm wondering if this was a little tip of the cap to him, as he also wrote Joy to the World and created the character of Anita. Next, we get our first proper Dalek appearance in the 15th Doctor's era, and also sadly the last. This third Doctor clip is from the 1972 serial Day of the Daleks, taken from a sequence where the Doctor is held captive by the Daleks. Does this mean that the 15th Doctor did actually get a Dalek story? Does this count? I'm not sure. And lastly, we see the intimate dance sequence from the Season 1 episode Rogue, which tells Anita that perhaps she doesn't stand as much of a chance with the Doctor as she initially thought. Number 36 and number 35. So the Doctor asks Susan Triad to build a large cube-like structure, which we later learn is called a Zero Room, designed to exist outside of reality so it can preserve Poppy even when the wish comes to an end. Now, the concept of the Zero Room was first introduced in the 5th Doctor's debut story Castrovalva, where the Doctor used a Zero Room on board the TARDIS to essentially have a bit of a post-regeneration nap in a tranquil room where all outside interference and signals were blocked. When the Doctor pulls up the plans for the Zero Room, we can also see reference to an Artron field on the right-hand side. Now, Artron energy is a form of energy or radiation that exists within the time vortex, and it's featured in Doctor Who a lot over the decades. And it was first mentioned in the 4th Doctor serial, The Deadly Assassin, in 1976. Now, often whenever the script calls for a generic science-y energy thing, it's usually Artron. Artron energy, Artron signals, that sort of thing. But most importantly, this is also where we got our name for our Artron ups from. Number 34. So Kate returns from changing out of her tweed outfit and announces to the room Gold Protocol's Doctor on the Bridge. Gold Protocol was first mentioned in The Giggle and reappeared in The Legend of Ruby Sunday. And it appears to be something to do with the Doctor's presence, because Kate only ever initiates Gold Protocol whenever the Doctor is around. So it likely means that the Doctor now has complete authority over the current situation, which does make sense because he's technically still the President of the Earth, a job title he first assumed in the Series 8 finale, Death in Heaven, back in 2014. Number 33. So the gang is assembled at Unit HQ and the Doctor tells them all about the villainous fellow Time Lord, the Rani. And Mel responds that she fought the Rani when she originally travelled with the Doctor all those years ago, which is a reference to her adventure with the 7th Doctor in 1987's Time and the Rani, where the Rani actually impersonated Mel in an effort to trick the Doctor. There's also the fun little detail in the scene of Mel's hair returning to frizzy mode, which is surely a callback to the mad curly hair worn by Mel during her classic appearances, including time in the Rani. Number 32. So the Doctor questions how the Rani got to Earth without a TARDIS. Now, did anyone else think that she was going to show him a vortex manipulator here? Just me? I honestly thought that's what— in fact, I said it out loud. Vortex manipulator, and then it wasn't. What it actually was is a time ring, which is a small time travel device first introduced in the 1975 serial Genesis of the Daleks, where one is given to the Fourth Doctor so he can escape from Skaro once his mission to destroy the Daleks is complete. Also, the Doctor's saying that he has the only TARDIS in existence. Is he forgetting about the 14th Doctor's TARDIS that's just parked in Donna's back garden? He literally was the one that created it back in The Giggle. Although, to be fair to him, a lot has happened since then, so maybe he just forgot. Number 31 and number 30. So the Rani reiterates that her plan is to explore the Underverse to find Omega, to which the Doctor responds by describing the Underverse as the world hidden below. He then goes on to compare it to several other places. The first of these being the Upside Down, which is a reference to the dark alternate dimension featured in the Netflix TV show Stranger Things. He also compares the Underverse to Narnia, the fantasy world created by C.S. Lewis for his Chronicles of Narnia book series. This is funny when you remember that the Doctor actually visited a Narnia-like realm in the 2011 Christmas special, The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe, and that it wasn't remotely a fun time, with acid rain and creepy wood monsters galore. So maybe he's still not quite over that whole ordeal. Number 29. Immediately after, Kate says that my father fought Omega back in the 1970s, which is a reference to her father, Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart's role in the 1972-1973 serial The Three Doctors, Omega's first appearance in the show. Number 28. Unit enters battle mode against the Bone Beasts, and the Doctor hurriedly tells Mel to power up the Indigo device for Ruby so she can go and stop Conrad. Project Indigo was first introduced in the Series 4 finale The Stolen Earth, where it was an experimental and unstable teleportation device used by Martha Jones to escape the Dalek massacre. Fortunately, it was just about stable enough to transport her safely, although she could have just as easily been scattered into atoms. Though unstable back in those days, UNIT has clearly perfected the technology by the time of the reality war, as Ruby is able to bounce about all over the place with pinpoint precision. Number 27. So the Battle of the Bone Beasts is underway and Kate orders for the double galvanic beams to be fired. Now the Doctor knows firsthand how devastating the galvanic beam can be, as it was this very same weapon that killed the 14th Doctor and triggered his Regeneration into the 15th Doctor. Now it appears that the weapon has had a bit of an upgrade since The Giggle as well, having been changed from a single galvanic beam to a double galvanic beam. And this isn't the only connection with galvanic energy this season either, as the planet Midnight, featured in The Well, is said to be flooded with galvanic radiation, rendering its surface deadly and uninhabitable. Number 26. So after Omega emerges from the Underverse and snacks on the Rani, Mrs. Flood steals her time ring and quips, "So much for the two Ranis. It's a good night from me." This is a reference to the 1970s and 80s British comedy sketch show The Two Ronnies, which starred comedians Ronnie Corbett and Ronnie Barker. They would close out every show with Ronnie Corbett saying, "It's a good night from me," and Barker following with, "And a good night from him."
That's all we've got time for this evening, so it's good night from me. And it's good night from him. Good night now.
Now, this being Russell T Davies, it was only a matter of time before we got a two Ranis, two Ronnies joke. And no doubt many of you were ticking this off your bingo cards when it happened. And I hope this clears that up for any viewers who were left confused by this reference. I know there were some comments on the ups and downs of people not understanding that reference, so hopefully that clears that up for you. Number 25. So the Doctor and the UNIT gang are discussing the fate of Conrad Clark, and Mel reveals that she's found a video he posted online. Now this social media overlay that we see on screen features several fake social media profiles, including one for a user called Cheryl.Smith who lives in Cardiff, which is Doctor Who's home base. Now as we mentioned in our Lucky Day video, because this detail also appeared in that episode as well, the profile picture for Cheryl.Smith is the real life profile picture of Doctor Who graphic designer Georgie O'Boy. Now Georgie assumedly worked on the designs of these social media overlays and decided to insert her own profile picture. And then when they needed something similar for the reality war, they just reused what they had. Now Georgie also designed many of the graphics seen on the UNIT desk screens, including the teal that's a little too blue. Number 24. And sticking with this final unit scene, this one's only visible in an official promo image, but on Kate's desk is a file with the name Prentice printed on the side. Now, Prentice, also known as the Grand Serpent, was a villainous alien character in Series 13 who infiltrated UNIT right from its very creation and would assassinate anyone who got in his way. Now, at some point during her UNIT career, Kate discovered his sinister intentions and vowed to stop him, which she ultimately did, stranding him on an asteroid with no hope of escape. So it does make sense for Kate to have a file on Prentice, as someone like him would of course need to be documented in case there's a need of future reference. Number 23 to number 8. So as we mentioned earlier, there have been quite a lot of clip cameos in recent weeks. So of course the reality war includes one as well. The Doctor has realised that he must regenerate to bring Poppy back, and so the TARDIS shows him scenes of his previous faces, presumably to remind him of where he came from and that life as the Doctor does go on. Now the first clip that appears is of the first Doctor in part 2 of the 1965 serial The Space Museum, taken from the ending sequence where the Doctor chats with Lobos. Now this shot has actually been colorized as well, as the original was broadcast in black and white. Next up is the second Doctor in the 1972/1973 serial, The Three Doctors. Whoever chooses these clips clearly likes The Three Doctors, as Troughton's clip last week was also from The Three Doctors. The Three Doctors was the first appearance of Omega, so it's a fitting story to reference here. This is followed by a brief shot of John Pertwee from the 1972 serial The Time Monster, taken from part 6, where the third Doctor confronts the extra-dimensional creature Kronos. After a cut back to the 15th Doctor, the clip show resumes with Tom Baker's fourth Doctor in the 1977 serial The Invisible Enemy, with a very brightly coloured scarf, I might add. The fifth Doctor is up next, who teleports away from the Cybermen in a scene from the 1983 20th anniversary celebration, The Five Doctors. Colin Baker's sixth Doctor then appears, and this one was very tricky to identify, but based on his stance and the length of his hair, this appears to be from some of the courtroom scenes in the 1986 story The Trial of a Time Lord, which is swiftly followed by a shot of Sylvester McCoy's seventh Doctor from the very end of the 1989 serial Survival, which was the final serial in classic Doctor Who. Jumping to the 8th Doctor and deep into the revival era, this is a shot from the 2022 episode The Power of the Doctor during the Guardians of the Edge sequence, in which 13 encounters some of her past incarnations. John Hurt's War Doctor is up next in a clip from his only TV appearance in the 50th anniversary special The Day of the Doctor, and this is from the scene midway through the episode where our heroes discover what the Zygons are up to. We continue in Doctor order with the 9th Doctor, and this is a clip from right at the start of the Series 1 finale, The Parting of the Ways, where the Doctor encounters the Dalek Emperor. Now, it's interesting that there's a clip from The Parting of the Ways in the same episode where Billie Piper appears out of nowhere with a golden glow. The 10th Doctor is next in a shot from the end of the Series 4 episode Forest of the Dead, where he opens the TARDIS doors with a snap of his fingers. This is also the exact same clip that was used during the Doctor montage in Wishworld last week as well. I'm all for recycling, but come on. It's not like there's a shortage of different shots to use, especially for 10. Next we see the 11th Doctor in the 2011 Christmas special The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe, followed by the 12th Doctor shortly after his arrival inside his confession dial in the 2015 episode Heaven Sent. Next we see Jodie Whittaker as the 13th Doctor, and not for the last time in this episode either. This is a shot from her run-in with the Fugitive Doctor in Fugitive of the Jadoon, who then appears in the clip show herself, putting on her glasses while saying goodbye to the 13th Doctor in The Power of the Doctor. And last but not least, we have the 14th Doctor in a scene from the very end of The Star Beast as he watches Rose and Donna just let the meta-crisis go. Now, interestingly, this sequence ends with the TARDIS scanner glitching between shots of the Fugitive Doctor, the 13th Doctor, and the 14th Doctor, as though it's choosing which Doctor will appear to help 15 through his regeneration. And of course, we all know what happens next. Number 7 to number 4, Jodie Whittaker is back! The 13th Doctor appears due to the 15th Doctor wreaking havoc on the timeline, and helps her future self through his impending regeneration. And there are a couple of fun references in this scene. So first off, the 15th Doctor responds to her appearance by quipping, "I'm surprised it's not the other guy, he is always turning up." This is a surprisingly self-aware nod to David Tennant's many appearances in Doctor Who. And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if Russell had also considered giving him a call for this scene right here as well. Immediately after this, 13 looks around the TARDIS interior and tells 15, "You've redecorated. I don't like it." Now, this is a common phrase for past incarnations to use whenever they get a glimpse inside their future incarnation's TARDIS. It was said by the 10th Doctor in The Day of the Doctor, and even goes all the way back to the classic series with the 2nd Doctor's comment to the 3rd Doctor in The Three Doctors, "I can see you've been doing the TARDIS up a bit. I don't like it." A little later in the scene, 13 delivers some insanely complicated technobabble to the 15th Doctor, which they both immediately describe as timey-wimey. This is the return of one of the Doctor's most iconic phrases, first coined by the 10th Doctor in the 2007 episode Blink, and used many times since.
Wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey.
It almost feels like a rite of passage for a Doctor to say timey-wimey at some point. And not only does this scene tick that box for Ncuti Gatwa, it does so for Jodie Whittaker too, because she never got to say it during her original run. The sequence ends with the 13th Doctor realising she should say "I love you" to Yaz, only for 15 to tell her that she never does. Now, this is a nod to the fan-ship-turned-show canon Phasmin, the relationship between the 13th Doctor and her companion Yasmin Khan, which was never actually meant to be a thing in the show, but later began to be explored when the producers saw a load of buzz about it online. Now, 13 and Yaz are set to return in a new series of Big Finish audio dramas starting in July, so hopefully they hadn't already recorded something that contradicts what we learn here. Number 3. So the Doctor is introduced to Belinda's mum, who believes he's an actual doctor, and informs him that "I have this pain down my left side every time I turn corners." Now, any Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy fans will have immediately clocked that this is a fun tip of the cap to Marvin the Paranoid Android, the iconic robot featured in the series, who complains that "I've got this terrible pain in all the diodes down my left-hand side." The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was created by Douglas Adams, who served as Doctor Who's script editor during season 17 of the classic series, and also wrote stories like City of Death and The Pirate Planet. Russell T Davies is no doubt a big fan of Adams' work, so you can bet that he was absolutely hooting while writing this line. Number 2. As the 15th Doctor heads out the TARDIS doors to begin his regeneration, you might be wondering why he randomly strikes up a conversation with a star in the distance. Well, this is another callback to the 2024 Christmas special, Joy to the World, which concluded with the Doctor's temporary companion Joy merging with a starseed and becoming a literal star in the sky. Now, I don't think many of us expected 15's final moments, including one of his final lines, Joy to the World, to connect so heavily with the recent Christmas special, but it's nonetheless a fitting sentiment for a Doctor who is known for being an emotional, high-energy, beaming ray of sunshine. Honestly, he will be missed. And number 1, of course, the episode closes with the 15th Doctor regenerating into a very familiar face indeed. Billie Piper. Piper, of course, played the very first companion of the 2005 revival, Rose Tyler, and as such helped catapult the show to success, and is one of the reasons it's still on our screens today. Now, interestingly, she isn't introduced as the Doctor in the closing credits, as is usually the case when the new actor appears on the closing end of a regeneration. Even David Tennant got an Introducing David Tennant as the Doctor credit in The Power of the Doctor, so the lack of one here is notable. Honestly, let us know your theories in the comments down below, and do keep your eyes on the channel because we may do a standalone Billie Piper theories video in the coming weeks. And now it's time for the bonus round, which is basically just some extra little things that we noticed that we weren't sure entirely qualified as proper Easter eggs. Now, in our Wish World review, I mentioned that the Rani looked like the Green Goblin zooming around on her hoverboard, and in the YouTube behind the scenes, Ncuti Gatwa says the exact same thing about himself riding the hoverboard this week. Great minds, you know? Great minds think alike. The TARDIS finally got a chair! Now, a big plot point in Joy to the World was that the TARDIS is big and lonely and how there isn't even a chair. But this episode, there was a chair! Cherry Sunday finally got her cup of tea. Took 2 seasons, but she got there. We have another Murray Gold callback, so the music that plays as Poppy's coat shrinks down is also used in The Doctor Falls when 12 is dying, and then again as he talks to Nardole and Bill before regeneration in Twice Upon a Time. Now, this track doesn't have an official title because it would have been featured on the Series 10 soundtrack, which was never released, which is a tragedy. And the boss. Who is the boss? We've had the boss mentioned by the Meep, by Rogue, now by Anita. Could it be Susan? Could it be the Master? Could it be Mrs. Flood as the Rani? Honestly, who knows? There are still questions to be answered, people. And there you have it, folks. There is our full breakdown, all the Easter eggs that we noticed in the reality war, and that brings a close to our breakdowns of season 2 episodes. Thank you so much for sticking with me over the last 8 weeks. I've really enjoyed doing these videos, and I hope you've enjoyed watching them. Until the next time, I've been Ellie for WhoCulture, and in the words of Riversong herself, goodbye, sweeties.